Yo, what's up guys? If you are an environment artist or prop modeler and you want to get one of your models into a source engine game such as Counter-Strike Go, or let's say maybe Half-Life 2 or Left 4 Dead 2 or Portal 2, pretty much any source engine game like that, then this is the tutorial for you. So today I'm going to be using Counter-Strike Go as the primary example, and my 3D modeling software is going to be 3ds Max, although basically the exact same rules apply for other modeling programs like Maya or Blender or XSI. So to start off, we're going to want to get the correct programs that you're going to need. So first off, you're going to want to start with the Valve developer community website, which is developer.valvesoftware.com/wiki. So this website is pretty much going to have everything that you need, and it's going to cover everything that I talk about in this tutorial. So to start off, there's a couple things you're going to need. If you're using 3ds Max like I do, then you're just going to want to type in 3ds Max, or actually let's just type in SMD importer. So SMD files. Oh, and then there's a 3ds Max tab right here. So SMD files are the raw model format files that the engine is going to compile. So you're going to need an SMD importer and exporter for 3ds Max, which can be located on this page. So there's multiple places to download them from. I like to use the ones from wonderboy.org. So you're going to want the 3ds Max SMD exporter and importer from there. And then what else you're going to need? You're going to need a VTF importer and exporter, basically. So what you're going to want is you're going to want a program called VTF edit. So that will take other image files such as TGAs or TIFFs or JPEGs or whatever, and it's going to convert it into a .vtf and also create a .vmt. So .vtfs and .vmts are the proprietary source engine like material texture file formats. So you can just type in VTF edit, and it should come up with a page for that. And there's a download, there's an official website, or you can go to Top Hat Waffles website, etc., etc. And then if you're using Photoshop, which I recommend you use Photoshop, if you make models, then chances are you use Photoshop to make your, texture sheets. So in that case, I recommend getting the plugin. So you can just type in VTF plugin, and then there's a page for that with download links at the bottom. So get that, install VTF edit, install the plugin, install the SMD importer and exporter for 3ds Max or Maya or whatever. It's all on this Valve developer community website. And once you've got all that, then we can move on to the next phase. Alright guys, so the next phase that we're going to start, we're actually going to open up our model in our modeling software, which is 3ds Max. And what I have here is I just have like a very basic tissue box. It has no materials assigned or anything. It's centered at the origin of the grid. So I'm going to select that. We're going to press M on the keyboard to open up the material editor, or you can go to rendering and then material editor, compact material editor. Either works. And then we're going to select one of our materials. We're going to go down here, and we're going to go to where it says diffuse color. You're going to click the none, so we can select a map, select a bitmap, and we're going to browse to where your UV texture sheet is. So mine is called tissue_box. You can see the preview down there, and it's a TGA file. I'm going to want to open that, and then it applied it. So if sometimes it doesn't show up in your 3D perspective window, then you can click this assign material to selection button, and then also click show shaded material in viewport. Sometimes it doesn't show up for me, and you got to click those buttons to just assign it. But anyway, so that's an extra step. And you can close that. So now we have it textured here. I can show you it without the lines on and all that. Very basic, very basic. So now we're just simply going to have it selected. I'm going to assume you guys froze it, but just in case you didn't, what you need to do is, like in case you're completely new to getting objects in any game, you want to select it. So what I like to do is, I like to go to Utilities, click this Reset X Form, and then click Reset Selected. So that's going to apply the reset X form modifier, as you can see up there. And then you can collapse it by going by right-clicking, going convert to editable poly. Now you're going to want to freeze your model. So you're going to want to hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, right-click, choose freeze transform, click yes. Then you're going to want to Alt right-click again, choose freeze rotation. And then basically you're good to start exporting this now. So with it selected, go to export, export, and then export it to wherever you want. I'm just going to go to the desktop. From the drop-down list, we're going to want to select source SMD. I'm just going to name it tissue box. Well, tissue underscore box. And then you're going to want to save. And then there we go. And then now you're going to want to create a collision model. So if you don't know what this is, basically the collision model it's basically the physics boundaries for the model itself. So like when you're in game, it's gonna say like what parts of the model interact with the player or the environment, or like where bullets can impact it, and all that other stuff. Oops, typed in collision model incorrectly. Just type in collision model. So after searching for collision model, it brings up this page which will explain all the different aspects of it to you. There's a quick little example. See this radiator? The collision model is just that red rectangle. That's it. It needs to be as basic as possible. And there's instructions here for all the different major 3D modeling softwares out there. It'll tell you how to do it. It's very simple. See, there's not even very many instructions. So we're going to want to go into 3ds Max, and I will show you how to create one. Super easy. All right, so now you want to make a box. Well, I mean, this model is super easy anyway. It's just, it can be very tedious for more complex models that actually are going to require multiple rectangles, or boxes if you want to call them. So I'm just going to make this match the outline of the box. While I'm doing that, I'll kind of explain a little bit more about it. But first I will convert to editable poly. So the only modifier that you want for your collision mesh is symmetry. That's the only one that I would ever recommend using, or else it will break it. Like, it will not work. You don't want to be slicing it. You don't want to be cutting it. You don't want to be beveling it. You don't want to extrude it. They need to be basic, primitive shapes, or else it will not work when you export, and when you try to compile, it's just going to be a big old mess of garbage. Alright, so I think that's it. So yeah, just keep that in mind that the symmetry modifier does work. It comes in handy for more complex collision models, in case your model is actually symmetrical and you can just symmetry half of it. So I actually forgot to add in a couple important steps for you guys. So I'm editing this little clip back into the video. So normally with this particular model, this single rectangle primitive would be the collision model. Like, that would be it. I would normally not make a box or another object of any type for the little bit of tissue that is coming out of the box, because it would look weird in game. Like, if you think about it, if I made a rectangle for the tissue, and if the model was upside down in the game, it would basically act as like a kickstand, and it would look really, really odd. But just for the sake of showing you guys how to properly make a multi-object collision model, I'm gonna make a little rectangle for the tissue at the top. So now that we have one of them, we can just copy that. Make sure you copy, you don't instance. And then we'll move it up top. And we will size it up. I'm just going to do this real fast. It's not going to be anything like super amazing. All right, almost there. There we go. That's fine. And then we'll select the bottom. Turn on snapping, snap it to the bottom right there, and there we go. So like I said, normally I would not have this rectangle there because it will look weird in game. You know, like, and it also, if someone shoots it with a bullet at the top, it's gonna flip over the whole, you know, object, the whole model. But anyway, so now that we have that, we can now select our original model, which I did right there, delete it. And then now what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna make these two separate objects, you're gonna make them one, essentially. So you're gonna wanna select one of them, right click, choose attach, and then left click on the other object or the other objects, you know, that make up your collision model. Then you can right click, and then now you can see they move as one. They're essentially grouped together. So then now the next step is to assign a smoothing group to each of the objects that are making up your collision model. So each object or each piece of your collision model needs to have a separate smoothing group. So we're going to select our element selection tool. We're going to click clear all under smoothing groups down here. Going to want to select the one at the bottom. Oh, it didn't clear it. There we go. And we're going to make it number 1. The next one, we're going to clear all, and we're going to make it number 2. So essentially, you can have up to 32 different objects in your collision model, which would be pretty complex. I do have one collision model that I made for a Jeep that is very complex. It has more than 32. So you might be asking, like, well, how am I supposed to, you know, separate them if there's more than 32, but there's only 32 smoothing group buttons? So say if there was more than 32, the 33rd one, you can actually make it share multiple smoothing group buttons. So it could be like 1 and 2. So then it would be its own, essentially, if that makes sense. And then the next one, you could make it like 2 and 3, or like 3 and 4. If I hope that makes sense. But hopefully you don't, you know, deal with anything that's complex. It's a pain in the ass, to say the least. All right, so this is number 1. This is number 2. Now we can deselect it. And then we're going to want to assign a material. It can be any material you want. It is inconsequential. It does not matter. The exporter simply needs to know that there's something there to export. So we're just going to apply the same material that we used for our mesh. And then we're going to make sure that the pivot is at the origin, or has the same origin as the base mesh for the model. So the other one is at the center of the grid, so I need to move this one as well. So I will go to the hierarchy, click Effect Pivot Only, turn snapping on, and I will drag it to the center. And it is at the center in all the viewports, which is great. Deselect Effect Pivot Only. And then to make it stay there, we're going to, again, go to Utilities, Reset Xform, Reset Selected. I'm going to maximize this window real fast. And then right-click, Convert to Editable Poly. And then Alt-right-click, Freeze Transform, yes. Alt-right-click, Freeze Rotation. And then we are good to export this collision model. We go to File, Export. Oh, that was weird. So Export, Export. And Desktop. Source SMD again. And then we're going to want to do tissue box underscore fizz. Or you can name it whatever you want, you guys. As long as you know that that is the physics model, which is also the collision model. Same thing. It's kind of like how a bump map is called the normal map. It's the exact same thing. So save that. Place it because I already did it earlier. And boom. There were no warnings in the export log. So we're all good to go. And we're good to move on to the next step, you guys. All right, guys. So our next step is to make some texture files from our TGA that will be used by the source engine. So I already have VTF Edit installed, as well as the VTF Edit Photoshop plugin. So I forget if I mentioned it earlier, but the VTF plugin does not seem to work with the 64-bit version of Photoshop. But it will work with the 32-bit, so as long as you have that, you're golden. So I like to use the VTF plugin. It doesn't matter, though. So I opened up my TGA in Photoshop, go to File, Save As. It's not export, it's just Save As. And then it should be in your list, VTF. So we're going to save as tissue_box.vtf. We're going to save that. It doesn't have really anything special about it. It doesn't have an 8-bit alpha. So we're going to want to go to template, compress texture. Make sure you do that. You do not want it. You don't want to unnecessarily increase your file size with just a blank alpha channel. It's just silly, guys. It happens a lot. Trust me, I see it happen a lot. Then go to OK. And then we are golden. So here you see we got our tissue box VTF. And over here is our SMDs. So now what you want to do is, so this is the actual like image file. So now the engine needs to have a .vmt file, which is basically just a file full of text parameters that tell the engine where the VTF is located and what model it's being applied to and what shaders and stuff it has. So you can so I already have it associated with VTF edit, so I just double click and it opens with VTF edit. And then you can see all your info and stuff like that right here. But what we're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to Tools, Create VMT File. It sets your base texture as, you know, this texture. You can specify a bump map, an environment map, all that jazz. We'll go to Options. So for your shader, you're going to want to choose Vertex Lit Generic. So Vertex Lit Generic is what your models should, like 99% of the time, that's what they should be. Light Maps Generic is for world textures. It will not render properly if you don't have the correct one. And then Surface, you can select like what sort of material it's going to be. I think what I chose before was wood furniture. Sometimes it's kind of hard to find the right one. If you want to, you can just look on the Valve developer community website. I think you type in, what is it? SurfaceProp. Something like that. I'll find it in a sec. But or you can just type in VMT parameters. So yeah, VMT parameters are going to be all the parameters that can be listed in your VMT. But before we get to that, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. We'll just save this. So we'll create, go to desktop, save, close, close. And then we have our VMT file. So you see they share the same name, but they're a different type of file. So in case that gets confusing for you guys, you can always rename your VTF whatever you want. It's only the VMT that actually matters. So this is the file that matters because see in here, it specifies your VTF. So you can name that whatever you want. It's not going to matter. So the reason why, I forgot to point this out earlier, I think, but I noticed a lot of 3D artists, to help them organize, they like to put, at the end of their images, they like to put like _D for diffuse, or they actually put diffuse. Do not do that when you go to export your SMDs, because your VMT is going to have that exact same name. Whatever the material name is that you exported your SMD with, that is what your VMT needs to be named. It has to match exactly. Your VTF does not need to match, only your VMT. So that's why I did not have _D or _diffuse on that TGA. Very important, you guys, because that'll confuse the heck out of you. Plus, I just hate having like _D and _diffuse and whatnot on my VMT. It just looks bad. I just keep them the same name because it does not confuse me. I've been doing this for a long time. So if you open this up, there's just a lot of room for a lot of commands. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut these. You're going to want to open up your Counter-Strike Global Offensive directory. Mine is located on my C drive under Program Files, x86, Steam, steamapps, Common. And then you're going to want to go to wherever you want these to be, basically. So we'll go to CSGO. And then we're going to go to Materials. So this is where all your materials will be kept, like your textures. And then I decided to put them in Models, and then a folder I created called Tutorial. So you see, I already have my finished VTFs and finished VMTs in here. So if you open up Tissue Box, I have a couple extra commands, shader parameters. So I have Cube Map, which adds reflection, the NV Map Mask, which tells it like what parts are reflective, and the NV Map Contrast, and all that good stuff. And I also have another skin for it. So the other skin is just, you know, like a plain sort of beige colored one. But anyway, so this is where I'm going to keep all my stuff. And of course, wherever you put it has to be specified in your VMT. See my base texture? It says it's in models/tutorial/tissue box. Like that's the name. So it has to say, the path has to be the same. By default, it uses materials as the root folder. So you see materials up here? That's the root folder. That's why it says models/tutorial/tissue box. All right, so now that that's done, we can go onto the next step, which is a little more complicated. It is creating the QC file. All right, so I already made a QC file, but all you need to do to make one, just make a text document and open it up, edit it, and that'll be your QC file. There's nothing special about it. So what we're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to go to your Counter-Strike Global Offensive directory, or the directory of whatever game you are making a model for. So for Counter-Strike Go, it's going to be this bin folder. It's always going to be a bin folder, you guys. And you're going to want to locate Studiomdl. So there it is. So Studiomdl is the program that takes your QC file and your VTFs and your SMDs and makes them into a model that the game can use. So I already have a QC file in here. See, it's tissue box type.qc file. So we can open that up. It's just Notepad. You know, nothing special about it. You don't need a program for this. And I kind of added some little notes in here at the end to help you guys. All of this I will put down in the description as well to help you guys out, so you can use it as a template if you want. So these are just some of the parameters that you can use for a model. So this first line always needs to be the directory of Studiomdl. So as you can see, it's C program files, you know, blah, 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 Counter-Strike Global Offensive /bin, which is exactly where my QC's at and where Studiomdl's at. This next one is optional that I added because I didn't get the scaling right in 3ds Max. So you can scale uniformly your entire model by adding this command in there. You don't need it if you don't want, but it's up to you. Mine worked better when it was 0.6 of the original scale. And then model name, this line is going to tell the engine where to compile your model to and what the name of it is going to be. So it's going to compile to the root directory of models, and then it's going to go into the folder tutorial, and it's going to be called tissuebox.mdl. So make sure you got .mdl at the end there. It's very important. And then the next line is defining the mesh of your base SMD, so which is tissuebox.smd. Make sure it has .smd on there. And then you have SurfaceProp, which basically defines like what sort of decals and sounds and like maybe a little bit of the weight and stuff of your model. So you can just type in SurfaceProp or SurfaceProp types into the Valve developer community website. And it should bring up a big list of stuff here. Let's type in, just type in SurfaceProp. Where is it? Here, material surface properties. So, and this will list like a whole like list of them that you can choose from. That website is invaluable, guys. And then this next line, CD materials. This is telling the engine the path. So the folder that your materials are located in, mine are located in materials, models, tutorial. So it's located in there. I showed you that earlier. And then this next, these next few lines are only necessary if you have multiple skins like I do. So I have 2 different skins for that tissue box. If you only have 1 skin, this is not necessary. Or I should say if your model only uses 1 material, it's not necessary. But so I can define them like that. This defines your hitbox. Mine is very default, doesn't matter. And then we have sequence. So that defines your animations. This has no animations, but it still needs 1 sequence line here. You just need to name it. So I just named it the same thing as my mesh, just tissue box. It doesn't need .smd. It's just tissue box. And then the next line is key values with prop data. So you can also type in prop data in, you know, developer community website. It'll bring you a whole list of prop data you can choose from. I chose cardboard.small. That'll tell you like, that'll tell you that the prop is, it'll tell the engine that the prop is physics. It's physically simulated. If your prop is static, do not have that line. Replace that line with static prop. Just like that. So then it won't be physically simulated. It won't move or anything. And then the next line is the collision model. You just define the collision mesh. Simple as that. The next line I added in was optional. The max convex pieces increases the amount of objects that you can have as part of your collision model. So like if it's super complex and you need the engine to render more, I just typed in 100 because it's a bunch. Like you're never gonna need more than 100. And that's really the only important stuff right here. If you want, you can always just type in, you know, search for QC file parameters or whatever in your at the Valve developer community website. It'll bring you a whole bunch of stuff. So that's that. Now we can move on to actually compiling, you guys. All right, so now that I already have my QC in here, all you need to do, oh yeah, so you need your QC file in here as well as your .smds. Like they need to be all in the same spot, you guys. So all you need to do is drag your QC file onto Studiomdl. And as you see, it gave an error there. So I did this on purpose to show you guys this problem since I think a lot of people don't know how to resolve it. It doesn't happen with every source game. But basically, the engine, it just doesn't know like what game is you're trying to compile for. So basically, that error that it came up with that flashed in front of your eyes super quick, it said that it couldn't find the game info. So I wrote down some instructions real fast. So what you got to do is you got to set the virtual project. Basically, it's a V project. It tells like your computer like what engine version you're running or something like that. But anyway, so in order to fix that, go to your control panel, go to System, go to Advanced System Settings, go to Environment Variables, and then down in the System Variables down here, look for something that says V project. I don't have that, so I'm going to go to New. I'm going to make it so capital V project. And then the variable value needs to be the directory path of your CSGO game. So it needs to be this right here. So Counter-Strike Global Offensive / CSGO. Copy that whole file path. Paste it in there. Click OK. Click OK. Click OK. And then that should be set now, you guys. So then go back to Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Go back to the bin folder. And then now let's drag it on there and see if magic happens, you guys. Oh, check it out. Magic. All right, so it compiled the model. I didn't see any errors in there. I mean, it goes real fast, but... so now you can open up Half-Life Model Viewer from the bin directory, or you can open it up from your... I can do it. From your Counter-Strike Global Offensive SDK. Either one works. It's all the same thing. Open up Model Viewer. And give it a minute. There we go. You want to go to File, Load Model. And now we're going to want to go to where I compiled it, which was Tutorial. And then there it is, tissuebox.mdl, guys. And we can see the physics model in red there. And you can see the NV map reflection works. It's all shiny on the plastic. And it also has 2 skins that worked. It says the VMTs were loaded, both of these. And that's it, you guys. Pretty easy stuff. just a little tedious at first, but I hope this helped you guys out. And catch you guys next time. Later.